Her paintings capture the stillness of a moment, clearly portraying not only the reality but also the feeling it evokes. Her sculptures draw from nature and myth, timeless images from ancient places, the real and the unreal. Patterns and memories all combine in her work. On this edition of Art Now, we'll look at the work of Toni Putnam.
Hi, welcome to Art Now, a program where we talk to artists whose work is part of our community. I'm Pat Salmon, and I'll be your host. Our guest today is Toni Putnam. Toni has a BA from the University of Rochester, New York. She also attended the École des Beaux-Arts in France and the Atlanta School of Art. She is a co-founder of the Talix Art Foundry in Beacon, New York, and she is a fellow of the National Sculpture Society of America. Toni, thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
I'd like to start by asking you about the fact that when you were growing up, you got to see several artists at work. Could you please talk about that and how that inspired you to be an artist?
Okay, the first was Sandy Calder, whose daughter was my best friend. She went to a little school in Roxbury and then moved over to our school in Washington, Connecticut for the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. So I got to know her, and in the process I got to know her family, and we both took piano lessons in the barn, which was Sandy Calder's studio, mm-hmm. was where the piano was. So we often spent time in there, and she'd be practicing, and I'd go down and watch Sandy mm-hmm. working, and he was working on the big mobile he made for the UN.
Oh wow!
He was doing a maquette for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, he has kind of chubby hands, and yet he can do the most delicate little things. You know, for every mobile, there's 3 little rings that have to go down so that it has more mobility.
Right.
And it was a huge barn, and he had, the long side was all windows from floor to ceiling.
Oh, wow.
And then up above, he had all these things hanging down, mobiles, odd things, and on one of them was a big gong, and then a gonger. Mm-hmm. And every now and then the wind would be just right and they'd come together. But you never knew when it was going to happen.
Oh, wow.
And it was very loud. He had a great sense of humor.
That's great.
He made the children's toys, and he just was very imaginative.
That's great.
The house was just full of useful items that he created out of tin cans and things.
Oh, that's great.
And I just really loved the fact that he could make things with his hands. Mm-hmm. And then the other person was Peter Bloom, who was a very well-known painter. And he made very large paintings, or maybe not even so large, but they'd fit on this wall.
Okay.
And he did them over a period of from 4 to 6 years.
Wow.
And in the process, he would do lots of drawings and paintings and sketches and watercolors of various parts of it that he was interested in working out more closely.
Right.
And so you'd go into the studio, and the big painting he's working on is there, but then every square inch of the walls all the way around are also covered with drawings and paintings.
Wow.
So it was really fun. But he's a very serious, very quiet person, but very nice.
Great.
So between those two, here I am. I'm a sculptor and a painter.
Makes good sense.
Yes.
Now, images from nature are a big part of your work. In your artist statement, I know you talk about growing up on a farm in Connecticut. Do you think that's where your affinity for nature comes from?
Oh, definitely, because, that's where I was. The town was very tiny, and it was a good 3 miles away, so it wasn't like you walked to it very often.
Yeah.
And so I had the run of the place with, we had all kinds of animals, cows, milked the cow, brought the cow in every day, and we had pigs and ducks and chickens and,
Right, so kind of almost like a working farm almost.
It was a working farm.
Yeah.
So I got to know mushrooms in the woods and all of the different kinds of trees and wildflowers and how to garden and all kinds of things like that.
That's great.
So I have certainly a great affinity for the woods.
Yes. Okay, I want to start first by talking about your sculpture. You were a co-founder and a worker at Talix Art Foundry in New York for 25 years.
Yes.
Would you like to talk a little bit about what an art foundry is?
Well, I think you'd like to know. I mean, this was just for artists. It was not my former husband had been making parts for airplanes.
Oh,
And
okay.
he decided he'd rather do art. So he started this art foundry and would go down in New York and go to the various different foundries and ask them if they needed someone to do some of the work for them. And gradually he built up the business. So I'm just going to put on my glasses and read this complicated thing
Sure.
for how bronze is made,
Okay,
or bronze castings are made.
right.
Bronze is 90% copper, and not nearly as hard as stainless steel. It is a process that has many phases. The original that the artist brings in, made of plaster or wax or something, is then we make a mold, a rubber mold around it, which is backed with plaster. And from the mold, we make a nice hollow wax and clean up all the little edges on it. And then we give the wax a plumbing system for getting the wax out of its next ceramic mold. The ceramic the wax is dipped into the ceramic once a day for 7 days, and it dries in between with fans.
Okay.
Then the wax is melted out, and the ceramic mold is fired, and the molten red-hot bronze is poured in. It cools overnight, the ceramic is knocked off, and the plumbing system is cut off, and the piece is then sandblasted and cleaned up with large to very small grinding tools. It is then hand-sanded, inspected by the artist carefully, and passed on to the patina department, where it is colored to the artist's taste, and then waxed and buffed. Done. The foundry keeps the mold in case the artist wants another copy. The foundry can also enlarge small pieces to more than life size for outdoor sculptures. I was there in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And many well-known sculptors came, as we were located on the Hudson, just an hour and a half north of New York City by car or train. Some of the artists were Jim Dine, Nancy Graves, Helen Frankenthaler, Frank Steller, Klaus Oldenburg, Paul Jenkins, Louise Bourgeois, and Noguchi.
Wow. We could probably do a whole program just on your experiences working with all those people.
Yes.
That's great. Well, let's turn now to your sculptures. We have a few to show here. Let's start with this first one, which is Horned Mask.
Yes, the horn mask, I had been making a lot of papier-mâché masks based on Revelation.
Okay.
And then I decided to try one in bronze, and so that's what this is. I can't remember what his real name is, or what it was truly about, because I can't see the backside and I don't remember what it looked like anymore. But it's an interesting piece.
Yeah, okay.
Now this is Demeter. And I made Demeter after I had a hysterectomy as a broken cart. And when I was almost finishing the wax, my best friend died.
Oh.
And she'd been hit by a car. She was going out for coffee.
Oh, wow.
She was hit by a truck. I mean, the truck was
Yeah.
going through the small street. And as it turned, its back just hit her in the side. She bled to death inside.
Wow.
So I wrote her name on the top
Yeah.
feather of the wing.
Yeah.
And then it got cast into it. But I've always liked that piece.
Yes.
It's at a conference center now, but it still belongs to me. This is Earth, and it was bought by one of my friends who was working on his work. It's the Earth Goddess, and she's carrying with her a little tower on one hand, and on the other hand she has a ship, and she has a tree that's running up through her. So she is the Earth, and those would be the things that were in the time that she was living as the Earth Goddess. And this is the moon goddess with her sacred white pigs. And she was in Egypt. And some Egyptians came to England and brought that culture with them.
Oh, okay.
So
I didn't know
that the pigs were sacrificed for a huge meal and praising the winter solstice.
Ah, okay.
And that was the only time they were allowed to be eaten. But eventually, gradually it became Christmas, and so then they had the boar with the apple in his mouth.
Right.
And this is Karanunas, who's probably the head figure of the Irish gods. And when you go to the various burial sites, the stones are all carved with circles. They just keep going and going. And they're to show the soul where to go after death.
Oh, okay.
So I drew them all over the creature. And he's horned. The Karanunas is a horned god, too.
Okay.
And this is Animal. He's not very big.
Yeah.
I made it, he's about like this
Yeah.
and that. And I just made him directly in wax.
Yeah, it's more abstract than a lot of the things you've done before.
I just like the idea of it. Well, it's more recent too. I think I did it after I moved out here.
Okay.
These are the wild turkeys. And Mr. and Mrs. are in the gallery at cinema.
Ah, okay. Yeah, and it's pretty appropriate for around here.
I had a whole herd that used to come in front of my house back east.
Yeah?
And they're so weird looking, I decided I had to make them.
Yeah, well, there actually have been some in Urbana as
Oh,
well.
I
In fact,
know.
I've seen some near my house.
Well, they would land in the middle of the street,
Yep.
at
Yes.
Windsor there. And they took them out by the, what is it called? I can't remember anyway. I can't think of the name.
Yeah,
of the
I know
street.
they-
took them out into the country and
Right,
lived not
right.
terribly far.
Yeah, I kind of missed them.
Yeah, this is one of my trees. I just called it fall tree. Because when I went to Japan, everything you find there is so beautifully trained to be its essential self. Setting the table, the food, the
Yes.
napkins, napkin rings, tools are all just absolutely beautifully done. So I thought to go back to the lollipop tree from first grade was the way to go.
Right.
The three crows, and I just like crows because they're very intelligent. They mate for life,
Okay.
and this group would come back the following year to help their parents raise the next group,
Really? I didn't know
and so
that.
on and so forth,
Huh, okay.
which is a very nice thing.
Yes.
And then this is one that's landing on a branch.
Yeah, I love that. It really kind of captures it landing from
Yeah.
flight. So.
And this is the blue horse, which I made half size, but he's not a pony, he's a horse, and so I decided to do him blue. And what he does, his front left foot there, you see, is on something. And he swings around on that. They were going to put him out in front of the building, but they decided that.
Yeah, you said
the
there's going
town
to be
said
in
that-
Cowboy, that's in Cowboy
it's,
Monkey.
It's probably much safer up above on the wall there.
Yeah, and it's
But it
out,
was kind of fun seeing it swing around. But it would have gotten broken, I'm sure.
probably, yeah.
We have Moscow. That was where I kept going through the square there, and you have that huge church.
Okay.
And every part of it seems to be done differently.
Oh, okay.
with
Yeah.
different
yeah,
colors and different
Right.
textures.
Right.
And so I came home and I made that just to remind me of that.
Now, how large is that piece?
Oh, it's about like this and this.
Okay.
Small.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Now, some of the sculptures you've done here are actually incorporated into pieces of furniture, and so I was going to
Well,
show a few of those.
So this is moon tree chair with what are those called?
Griffin.
Griffin feet. What you have to do is make sure you make it it's comfortable. to sit in. And if it's going to be with a table, then you have to make sure you make it the right height. Just like a table, you also have to make that the right height so the chair and table go together.
Right.
So comfort really is the thing, and then after that, you've got the right size and all. Then after that, you can use your imagination and go wild.
Right. Okay, we have a couple more here.
So that's the ibis chair. And this is the winter cherry table.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We're going to turn to your paintings now.
Okay.
All the paintings we're going to look at today are encaustic paintings.
They are.
Could you explain to our viewers what that is, what an encaustic painting is?
Yes. Well, when I left the foundry, I had this pot of wax on my table for making waxes for bronze.
Right.
And I had to figure out something to do because I couldn't really afford bronzes anymore. So I started painting the wax over watercolors and on different kinds of paper. And it really was an interesting effect. But finally I just decided to put two pieces of wood together so I'd have a frame and a picture. And then I painted that with wax, about 3 layers. And then I smooth it as best I can. And try and get all the air bubbles out. Then I use the wax oil pastels.
Okay.
And I scribble them on and then rub them in with my fingers, and then I torch it with a propane torch.
Wow.
Very gently.
Yeah.
And then I put on another layer and another layer and another layer until...
Okay, so it's very layered.
It's very layered, but you know, it doesn't get any higher than that.
Right, right.
Yes.
So how would you compare that to painting with oils? I mean, obviously,
Well,
there's
I
not
don't
as
think
much
you don't-
process.
Well, I like the ephemeral quality you get, and then because afterwards you can really buff them up and get quite a high sheen on them. And I don't do that much surface texture on them at all. I mean, sometimes I've built up wax and then colored that, but for these I do them very flat.
Right. Okay.
And whereas painting, you know, you have brushes and you get all kinds of different textures.
That's
and
true.
things like that.
True. Okay, we're going to take a look at some of your paintings now.
This is Hathor, who is the god of, she's a cow, and she's the god of the sky. And she takes in the sun at night and then gives birth to the sun in the morning.
Okay. Is that Egyptian? I see there.
It's Egyptian,
Yeah.
yes. And so I put the pyramids underneath so everybody would be quite sure they knew that.
Right.
Yeah. And did you know that the pyramids, there's 3 and then a little one, that they line up with Orion's belt?
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And so they can tell when those were built,
Right, that makes sense. Yes.
which no one in Egypt will believe.
You're kidding.
I am not.
Oh, no.
I will not admit it. Because then it would put it in a different kings.
Oh,
Or
okay.
maybe pre-kings.
Right, right. Okay.
Yes. And this is the Windsor Barn. I call it the Windsor Barn because it's you could see it from Windsor, and you can get into it from Race. And
Okay.
I just watched it for a couple of years until it disappeared. And I must have done at least 10 pictures of it.
Wow.
In winter and summer.
Yes.
And as it was coming apart, and one
Yes.
from each view so I could see it falling.
Right.
Yeah. It was a beautiful barn. It was an old cow barn. And down on the lower right there, you can see there's a little outdoor summer milking shed.
Okay.
And this one I call shadows because of all the shadows from that on that barn.
Yeah, I love it. I love it's real and yet it's almost dreamlike in some ways too.
Yes, I changed the colors of the sky and something you don't usually see. And this is called the puddle. You can see the reflection there. And it's from an old barn. I guess it must be about 14th century in Sweden.
Wow.
And it's been completely redone. And the whole landscape around the barn, or of the whole farm, is now used for sculpture.
Oh, okay.
But it changes I think every year. They have a new group of people come in
Oh, wow.
and do it, because of course the winter is pretty snowy.
Right. Yes.
And someone does the whole barn too. They take it over and do something in it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And she had, it's 4 floors.
Mm-hmm.
So she had different things going on each floor, but she had put red over the windows, so the whole thing had this kind of glow of red,
Oh, wow.
which I left out of pictures that I made because
Yeah.
it looked funny.
Yeah.
And that's a landing in the barn.
I-
And that's a raven down on the right there.
I love the quality of it. It's almost surreal. But I love it.
Yeah, they came out lighter. Anyway, the ladder is gold,
Mm-hmm.
and the basin in front has water, and it reflects the window.
Right.
And that one I called Aloneness.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the bird and the fog and the
Mm-hmm.
trees. This was in England, in the Lake District.
Yes, I can recognize it.
And there's a little tiny white dot in that field coming down, and that's where we stayed.
Oh, my goodness.
It's an old sheep farm,
Mm-hmm.
and all of the sheep were being born. So all night long, you stayed light till 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
And you would hear the ba ba all night long.
Oh, my
First the mother,
goodness.
and then the child, and then finally they'd get together, and then it would begin again over here.
Oh, gee.
It was really fun.
The
Lots
lake
and
country
lots
is
of
beautiful.
sheep. Yes.
Did you do a number of the pictures there?
I did a lot of, I took a lot of pictures with my
Right.
camera,
Right.
more than I possibly could use. And I hiked up around the high hills. No one else with me wanted to do it. They
Oh.
were terrified of the fog.
Oh, that's too
And I
bad.
have to admit, one hill came like that. I
Right.
just had to go like this all the way down. And it was hailing.
Well, I can understand.
Then my camera ran out of film.
Oh, gee.
Or battery or something.
Darn.
But I did it.
Not a good day. Okay.
That was the deepest lake, and then next to the highest mountain
Wow.
in the area.
Yes.
Okay, onward. Pears.
Mm-hmm.
I think I always call it 5 pears, but it's 4. And this is my friend Judith. She
Mhm.
was talking to someone, and she just looked so beautiful. I took a picture.
That's wonderful.
And someone bought it thinking it looked like them.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
was
how
nice.
funny. Yes. So when you're doing paintings of nature, what models do you use? Photos, or how do you?
I usually use photos, and I take a lot of photos, and I often cut them up and
Mm-hmm.
use them differently.
Yeah. Oh, so you actually sort of
So I
move them
change-
around and
yes,
change them.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
a farm that the picture came out about that long. Well, if I, we've been
Right.
so I took out some of the buildings,
Oh, okay.
just made it the way I liked it.
Sure. That's your prerogative as the painter.
Yes.
Okay. Since you've done both painting and sculpture, I was going to ask what you like most about each medium.
Well, sculpture is, I don't know, it's just really great for the ego because you can make them so big.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And when I did the welded copper, I had the same feeling. I mean, a lot of those trees are like 14 feet high. And I made several sculptures that were over 13.
Yeah.
So, and then I made just lots and lots of different sized sculptures, small things.
Right.
It's a wonderful feeling
Mm-hmm.
because they're indestructible.
That's a good point. How about the painting in contrast to that?
Well, I just love doing the painting. I love both
Okay.
making sculpture
Equally.
and doing painting.
Okay. When you're doing your art, what would you like your art to do for your audience?
I just want them to enjoy it. I don't have any I'm not trying to teach them anything.
No ulterior motives.
No.
Okay.
Except that, for a long time I used a lot of images that you would find, I guess Jung brings them up, images that go back. And I think it's good for people to keep seeing those, so I use them a lot in my work.
Right. Okay. And I guess my probably the last question here would be, if you had unlimited time and funding, what art would you like to create?
Well, I'd like to go back and make more bronzes, lost wax bronzes.
Yeah.
But it's incredibly expensive. As I said, that's going to be...
Yeah, and I think it's becoming more difficult to find places where you can do it too, is that correct? Because I know the university
A
used
lot
to
of-
have
yes.
facilities and now doesn't.
Right, because
Yeah.
it's more expensive.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of foundries that have closed. But I had some very small pieces made, and it was really expensive to do them just a few years ago.
Right.
I mean, little tiny things.
Right. So no more big pieces, I
No.
guess.
Unless
Okay.
someone commissions me and pays for it.
I understand. Okay. Thanks for watching Art Now. Our guest has been Toni Putnam, and you can see her art locally at the Cinema Gallery at Urbana, New Harmony, Indiana at the Women's Institute and Gallery, the Renaissance Gallery in Carmel, Indiana, and you can learn more about Toni at the 40 North website. We hope you enjoyed today's show, and we also hope it will inspire you to explore the local art scene and to make your own art now.